AWSDeploymentTarget EC2 instances. Description: deploy applications on virtual servers. Prerequisites: AWS account, EC2 instance. Use cases: deploying web applications, running databases, hosting microservices. Steps: launch EC2 instance, configure security groups, install dependencies, deploy application, instance configuration errors, fixes, review instance type and configuration, verify instance storage and capacity, check instance release and permissions, network connectivity issues, fixes, verify security groups and network settings, check network interface configuration, troubleshoot network latency and bandwidth, application deployment failures, fixes, check deployment scripts and dependencies, verify application configuration files, review application logs and error messages, Lambda functions. Description: run serverless code in response to events. Prerequisites: AWS account, Lambda function. Use cases: processing events, API endpoints, scheduled tasks. Steps: create Lambda function, configure triggers, deploy function code, test function, code errors, fixes, debug code and fixers, user logging and monitoring tools, review code for best practices, memory and timeout issues, fixes, optimize code and adjust configuration, analyze a memory usage and performance, consider a single larger instance size, security concerns, fixes, implement IAM roles and security best practices, user secure libraries and dependencies, enable function-level security settings, ECS services. Description: deploy and manage containerized applications. Prerequisites: AWS account, ECS cluster. Use cases: deploying containerized applications, scaling applications, managing container life cycle. Steps: create ECS cluster, define task definition, launch ECS service, monitor service health, container image issues, fixes, verify image availability and correctness, ensure image tags are correct, check for image pull errors, resource constraints, fixes, adjust task definition and cluster resources, review CPU and memory limits, optimize a container resource usage, services scaling problems, fixes, configure scaling policies and adjust service settings, monitor service metrics and adjust scaling parameters. Consider async scaling features. EKS clusters. Description: deploy and manage Kubernetes applications. Prerequisites: AWS account, EKS cluster. Use cases: deploying Kubernetes applications, managing Kubernetes clusters, integrating with AWS services. Steps: create EKS cluster, deploy Kubernetes application, configure cluster settings, monitor cluster health, Kubernetes configuration errors, fixes, review configuration files and cluster settings, check for syntax errors and validation issues, verify Kubernetes version compatibility, pod deployment failures, fixes, check pod logs and resource requests, verify pod definitions and resource limits, analyze pod events and status, cluster connectivity issues, fixes, verify network settings and cluster access, check for network policies and firewall rules, analyze cluster networking topology and troubleshoot issues.